Good morning. May I introduce to you Darrell Harkey, past president of Lincoln County Historical Society, chairman of Lincoln County Historic Properties, chairman of Ramsour's Mill, Battlefield Commission, and he founded the Ramsour's Mill event.
Good morning. Thank you, Ben. First of all, let me set the stage for what was happening in 1780. The North was under the control of the British. The British held Philadelphia, Boston, and New York. Some folks say that instead of the British holding Philadelphia, New York, and Boston, that Boston, Philadelphia, and New York held the British. And they certainly were a deterrent to what was happening, of sending men to the South to conquer the South. The South here in South Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia was the only thing that stood between complete victory for Great Britain. Lord Clinton sailed from New York down to Charleston in early 1780. He brought with him a general named Charles Cornwallis. He surveyed all the information that he got, and he was convinced that this area was under control, or would be under the control of the British. So he said, my job here is finished. He sailed back to New York. He left Cornwallis in charge. Well, Cornwallis captured Charleston on May 12, 1780. Over 5,000 men, patriots, surrendered to the British Army. That was the largest American army ever to surrender to a foreign foe until Corregidor on April the 9th, 1942, when the Americans surrendered to Japan. Cornwallis had sent out feelers, men who would find out exactly what to expect when Cornwallis moved into the area. He expected that they was going to welcome him with open arms. Not so. They had every thing that the British needed to gain a complete control. They had numbers, they had and men and armies. They had better experienced men. They had they had cannon. They had everything. One thing that they forgot was the resolve of these backwoods men. They discounted what these men thought about the British Army and the Redcoats. So they sent two men, Lincoln County, Colonel John Moore and Major Nicholas Welch, into the area. They lived here to rally the Loyalists, and they wanted to reaffirm their oath to King George, and so they had to have a place to rally. First they met over about 8 miles west of here on Indian Creek. That area swelled so much that they couldn't handle the crowd. So they decided to move to Ramsour Mill, where all the roads that converged into Ramsour Mill. It was an easy place to find. Any road you got on would bring you to the mill here. On the 18th of June, they encamped on the top of the hill here, about 200-300 yards on the top of the hill here. That's where the encampment was, and they were encamped all the way down to the creek. That's Clark's Creek. General Griffin Rutherford was down on the PD, and he found out about this encampment here. Griffin Rutherford sent word to one of his colonels, Francis Locke, of Rowan County, that they needed to come here to Ramsour Mill and disperse the Tories. Francis Locke had 100 men or so, and he was down around Full Mountain, and he started talking to the Loyalists, to the Patriots, and told them what was happening. Griffin Rutherford was marching this way. Supposedly, with Francis Locke set out on June the 19th and started marching this way, thinking that Griffin Rutherford was also coming this way, which he was. He just wasn't marching as quickly as Locke was. Patriot from Lincoln County, who lived over here off the Warwick Mill Road, Adam Reed, found out about the encampment here and the number of Tories and all the, in other words, the logistics. Adam Reed and several men went down the old Sherrills Ford Road, which Francis Locke and his men were advancing this way. He met them and told them there's 1,400 Tories. Some of them don't have weapons, most of them do, and they're encamped on top of the hill there at Ramsour Mill, overlooking the mill and the mill pond. Meanwhile, Francis Locke had now got to 400 men with him. Griffin Rutherford had advanced down 8 miles south of here, southwest of here, and had stopped. His men were tired and stopped at a tavern where they were buying some courage in one of the taverns. And Francis Locke's men came into the Buffalo Shoals Road and the State Road, which is that road, Dixon Street, right there is the State Road. It came right up through here and across here to the school, came to the school here, and went across the top of the hill and down to Ramsour Mill, which we'll move up there in a moment. Francis Locke, Tuesday morning, very foggy, hot and humid, he stopped. He said, if I don't attack, they're going to attack me. And I'll be better off attacking the Tories than letting them attack me. So he made a decision that he's going to deploy his men. He sent some of his men. The Island Ford Road runs across here and into what is now Lincoln. Lincoln was not here then. And it went up to the Tuckasegee Road. The area behind us here, you can swing around here, you can see the trees. And if you're looking at a map, that's the boggy swamp. There's no way to get through there. So they had to go up to the Tuckasegee Road and come in from the south side. So he sent 5 captains or more up there with 200 men approximately, and was going to attack the south side of the hill. Locke and his men were going to attack from this area, and out front was a man named Gilbert Falls. He rode in, and he rode up on 2 pickets. He didn't realize that they had the pickets out. There was 2 pickets out here asleep. He rode right up into them. One of the pickets raised up and shot him on his horse. Now, the battle, as Francis Locke and his men came up the hill, came up the State Road, and these men over here on the Tuckasegee Road attacked from the south the men on top of the hill. Now, we'll move up to the top of the hill and we'll resume our talk there. Okay, we're standing at the mass grave site. This is a monument that we commissioned the late Judge John Friday to write for us, and so we put this plaque up and here to commemorate the story of the mass grave site and what happened here, who's buried here. June 20th, bodies are bloating, hot. They took advantage of an existing ditch or wash where the water had eroded, and they took advantage of it and dug a trench. In the trench, they unclaimed bodies, both Whig and Tory alike, were all put here in the ground and covered up. For years, we had read accounts of what had happened here and where the mass grave site. No one knew where the mass grave site was. So based on what we had read, just on the slope of the hill, we decided that we would we'd do this area here. So, as chairman of the Historic Properties Commission, we hired Dr. Michael Baker, Stones Unturned, who was a professor at Arkansas University, to come and try to locate the mass grave site. We took a big chance. We started digging in August, I believe, 91. We started digging in this area here. Well, we found some stones that he said that man had placed there rather than God. He said man placed these stones here. So I believe we're in the right area. So as we dug down, we got down about waist deep. The soil changed. The soil color changed. And he said, I've dug into enough graves to know that this is the decomposed remains of human bodies. But he said, me saying this is not going to make it official. So he took a couple of bags of samples, sent it to Weaversville, to the lab to have checked out. When it came back 2 days later, it was proven to be the decomposed remains of human beings. That's what we were looking for. We weren't looking for artifacts or anything else. We were trying to locate the mass grave site. We had found it. So we put everything back as it was, and we covered it back up and left it, and this is the way it was. Right. Now we're going to move on around to the Whig captain's grave. We're now standing on the south side of the hill, which most of the fiercest fighting occurred up this hill. From the area of the Tuckasegee Road was right over here in this direction. It ran into the creek that's down at the bottom of the hill that you probably can't see on the video, but the creek runs down through here and eventually runs into Clark's Creek. The 5 Whig captains that were killed coming up this hill were all buried here. Now, Captain Bowman was from Burke County, and he was a former sheriff. It says that they were killed here coming up. Bowman was actually wounded and didn't die until 2 days later. His wife came down from Burke County riding a horse with a young baby and found her husband, and he gave her his will, his last will and testimony. So we know that he didn't die until 2 days later. Well, the Whig captains that were put in the brick enclosure were in the grave, and later a homemade brick enclosure, which you can't see behind this. This is a relatively new, in the last 30 years, a Boy Scout project that actually encircled the grave. Captain Dobson's was killed in the battle. His daughter married Wallace Alexander. Wallace Alexander was also reported to be at the battle. He didn't die, of course. In approximately 1840, when Anne Alexander and Wallace died, they wanted to be buried in the same grave that her father was buried in. So they brought them up and buried them in the same grave. So according to legend, 5 Whig captains and Wallace Alexander and his wife Ann Dobson is buried in this grave. Now to the west of here, there were 2 Tory captains killed. The graves have been lost to history. They said west in a pine thicket. That probably was a pine field there, and somewhere out here, probably about 30, 40 yards, are 2 more Tory captains from Burke County that's buried out here. I've said many times that this is the largest non-church related cemetery in Lincoln County. Non-church related, because of all the bodies over there and the Warlicks people here, plus the people down here, and some others that we don't even know about. So I'm sure that there's well over 100 bodies buried here, making it the largest non-church related cemetery. This whole hill is a cemetery. Now we're going to move on down to the cabin and the Tuckasegee Road. Okay, we're now standing on the lower side of the battlefield. Wasn't too much action here other than the fact of the great skedaddle. The Tories were en masse coming across the hill and getting in the most famous road probably in western North Carolina, the Tuckasegee Road. And that's the road up here. It runs down to the mill dam. The mill dam is in this direction, about 50 yards. Remnants of the dam is still there. You can walk down and see the remnants of the mill. It's been washed out. But that was the mill dam for the grist mill that Bill Wright Jake Ramsour owned, which was just across the creek in this direction. And that's about 100 yards over there. That's not that far over there. We talk about John Martin Shuford, who had a nickname of Crooked Nose John. Crooked Nose John was responsible for hanging a young 16-year-old kid named Isaac Wise. Isaac Wise is buried across from the Newton prison camp in the woods. This has a marker there. When he proclaimed liberty, and he was stopped by John Martin Shuford and his men, and they asked the boy, said, "Are you a loyalist? Or are you a patriot?" He said, "I'm for liberty." So they put the young Isaac Wise on a log or a horse or however that name, and in his haste to get a rope to put around Isaac Wise's neck, John Martin Shuford fell in the roots of the tree and broke his nose. This was years before the battle here, and thus he was called Crooked Nose John. He certainly didn't like the nickname, but he was in the battle. He was wounded. It says he departed this life on June 22nd. Now that's 2 days after the battle. The reason it's 2 days, they didn't find him. He was wounded. He crawled this area right here, and there was a spring here, and he was bleeding. And I've been told by medical people that a person that's bleeding to death has an unquenchable thirst for water. So he tried to make it to water. When his body was found here, next to the spring, they decided to go ahead and bury him where his body was found. So this was the footstone is here. The original stone was broken up, and it's in the museum in Lincoln. It's broken, but it's been put back together as best it could. And this stone has been erected to show where John Martin Shuford fell. Tories tried to make parlay. They tried to talk, and so they could get away. That's what they wanted to do. They didn't want to renew the fight. They wanted to get away. So they did stall, and enough time that they did depart, went home. One captain, Peter Carpenter, who has a lot of Carpenter descendants here in Lincoln County, was shot through the shoulder. It was bleeding, and the story goes that if you put a silk handkerchief through a wound, it will stop the bleeding. They say that Peter Carpenter ran a silk handkerchief through the wound, went home, and he did live. The bleeding stopped, and he lived. So the Carpenter family made a monument for him. He's buried over in what they call the Big Gully Cemetery in Beaver Dam in Gaston County. But John Moore met Cornwallis, promptly placed under arrest and released. Some say he died here. Some say he went back to Carlisle, England. I really don't know. But his family resided 8 miles west of here. And for those who know the area, it was just about a mile down the road behind the Walmart over between Krause and Cherryville. So basically, that's what happened here in a nutshell.